Hey guys, welcome. Thanks for joining our webinar today on Copilot. I'm Alice. I'm a product marketing associate here at Regal, and I'm joined by Yael.
Hello, I'm Yael. I'm a director of product and product marketing at Regal. I've been here for over 3.5 years now. I actually started out working on product for human agents because we started out as a CCaaS platform built by two CCaaS leaders that had immense challenges in orchestrating complex workflows in a contact center solution. And now, as LLMs and voices have evolved, we've gone all in on AI agents. And so today we're excited to talk about that.
Great, and before we dive into any discussion, we'll first be showing a walkthrough of Copilot itself so you can see how it works in Regal's platform. Before we dive into a conversation on why we built Regal Copilot, I'm first going to go through a walkthrough of the platform itself on how you can build and improve your AI agents. Let's get started. So let's say we're building an AI agent for an insurance company. I want it to qualify new leads here, so I can just type in what I want in the chat. As you can see, you can be pretty open-ended or as specific as you want in your requests. Copilot can actually reference things like transcripts and other agents that you've built to create new on-brand prompts that are consistent across your customer touchpoints. So here you can see Copilot doesn't just build in a vacuum. It's actually showing me its reasoning, flagging assumptions, and even asking me for clarification where it needs to. So in this case, let's actually request the agent to ask the caller if it has a single-family home or a condo. And just like that, Copilot is generating the full agent with actions, guardrails, and even the conversation style. I can access this agent directly on Regal's platform. So now that this is built, we can start testing. So your first agent most likely won't pass every test scenario, and that's exactly why it's important to stress test it so you can improve it before it ever goes live. So let me ask Copilot now to generate some of these scenarios. As you can see, these examples aren't just easy test cases. You want your agent to be able to handle things like edge cases, objections, and tangents, because these are all things that happen on real calls. Now that these test cases are generated, we can run simulations to see how your agent performs. Here you can see exactly where it holds up and where you could use a little refinement, whether that's in the prompt or the agent style. You can easily review suggested improvements from Copilot and make the changes within seconds. Best of all of these improvements are made before your customers ever talk to your agent. So let's get into some of the exciting features that I mentioned at the start. So Copilot doesn't just stop at launch. Once the agent is live, real call transcripts feed back into Copilot, so you're always learning from actual customer conversations. I have an existing AI agent here as an example, and let me ask Copilot now to review some of the recent call transcripts. Right now, it's analyzing things like customer interactions, flagging any common patterns, and surfacing suggested improvements across things like agent actions, task steps, and even your routing logic. As you can see, this is how your agent gets stronger with every single call. So this is where the real value of Copilot shines. For your team, this means you can run more experiments, you don't have any of the same capacity constraints, and you get automatic analysis with every call. You can get faster signals on messaging, objections, and with Copilot, you can see what's actually resonating with your customers. Great, so that is a demo of the Copilot platform, and now we're going to dive into a conversation with Yael on why we built Regal Copilot, some of its enterprise use cases, and also have some time to answer a few of your questions. Cool. Great, and today we're going to be discussing Copilot, why we built it, and the sorts of problems that it solves. So yeah, we can get started right away.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So you've been to a lot of AI conferences recently,
Yeah.
And I'm sure at every booth you see a big slogan about how AI agents promise unlimited scale, but also no capacity constraints. And that makes me wonder, why aren't companies just deploying more and more AI agents today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's happening with time, but to your point, like there's still a lot of complexity involved today in getting an agent live and getting it to operate effectively, and it's because of all the things that go into building an agent in a complex environment, right? So if we think about a sample like an appointment scheduling agent for a dental office, right? Building a demo is not that hard. You can sort of like mock the data, ask one question, like ask for availability. Great, that works. Like we've got that scheduled for you. But when you're actually deploying that agent in production, there's a lot of challenges that come up and a lot of edge case handling that needs to be thought of sort of in advance. So the first example of that is depending on the kind of patient that you're interacting with, whether they're new or returning, you might have different behavior. For a new patient, maybe you need to collect some more information about who they are, and then you need to pair them with the right doctor. Maybe they want to schedule an appointment for a time that's already been booked. Maybe they get frustrated on the call and they want to speak to a human. So all of these things require sort of like proven expertise to sort of know, to envision and to prompt around thoughtfully and sort of proactively. So even within the prompting, there's a steep learning curve there, right? And we have built our expertise over years now of deploying agentic workflows for highly complex businesses and highly regulated industries. But if you've never done it before, you're not going to know how to prompt for the most reliable action invocation. You're not going to know how to structure the knowledge base for accurate and reliable retrieval at scale. And you're not going to know how to test at scale too, right? So if we think about the complexity of testing, you want to get coverage across all of these different edge cases and the variability in what questions could come up, but also the different personas of the customers that you're interacting with. And then even once the agent is live, you're rarely done there. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so there's a whole body of work there around monitoring the right data points and figuring out, okay, if the agent is not performing like you want it to, it's not booking the appointment in this subset of use cases, like, how do I figure out what to do about that, right? What do I change in the prompt? What do I change in the knowledge base? And how do I know that the change was made effectively and actually worked? And so all of that requires learning over time and developing best practices. And that's why an AI can be so powerful and sort of guiding you throughout that process is when you embed those best practices in every step of the flow, it makes it faster and more effective from the get-go.
Great. And yeah, you mentioned a lot about how Copilot is like a guide and a teammate and makes the overall process of building, improving an agent a lot faster. I'm curious to know, why is that important and what sorts of results will we see from that?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about that agentic lifecycle that I just spoke about, where there is, a lot of work and complexity involved, the building, the testing, then deploying it outbound, inbound, integrated with potentially human reps and another CCaaS solution,
right.
Then monitoring and improving. What Copilot does is it uses an LLM to compress that entire lifecycle and make it automated and make it running sort of 24/7. So you can think of it as being like your guide or your quarterback throughout the entire process, recommending changes for you, making actions on your behalf once you sort of approve them. And the reason this matters is it allows you to launch with much higher confidence and achieve your business goals much faster. It means, the first draft is going to be, better than before, and it means you're going to get it to that 95% effectiveness much faster. And certainly with the businesses that we've worked with, we've seen AI agents drive actual revenue, right, on conversion style conversations. We've seen it drive better customer satisfaction. We've seen it drive higher containment or resolution in support use cases. So allowing you to get those results faster is the number one benefit, I would say. And then there are others, like the learning speed just increases substantially, right? So if we think about the current state, experimentation is quite expensive today because you have to create the experiment, then design it. So maybe that means creating different agents with different sort of configurations. Then you're running the experiment, monitoring to make sure that you have a sufficient sample of data, and then you're analyzing the results and trying to figure out okay, which version won, basically. With Copilot and with AI, we can just recommend experiments to you, again, fully embedded in your business context and logic and prompt and knowledge bases. Execute that experiment on your behalf, and then come back to you once we have sufficient data to say, okay, here are our learnings about what messaging landed, what objections are coming up most, what questions are coming up most that we don't have context to answer, and so we need to add context around that. As a new LLM launches, we could just test that automatically, or when new voices are launched, we can see what makes customers feel the most heard or feel the most taken care of. So being able to get those insights faster allows you to create a better experience for your customers, personalize future conversations, and figure out where to put your resourcing and what kind of context is needed for your agents.
Cool.
And then the last piece I would say is unlocking new use cases. So typically, the businesses that we work with start with use cases that are conversations human agents are already handling. And it's quite smart, actually, because you already have a baseline to measure your AI agent's effectiveness against existing sort of performance. Another common use case we see is, well, our human agents are already reaching out to new leads, but there are a bunch of sort of like aged leads that they don't have capacity to reach out to ever, and so we're gonna add a touch point there with AI, and that's sort of like a no-brainer. But what Copilot allows you to do is sort of lower the maintenance of each one of these use cases,
Right.
so you don't have to handhold, because AI is sort of like monitoring for you on your behalf when you go on vacation, when you go to sleep, so you can shoot for the moon. You can think bigger.
Yeah.
So for that appointment scheduling use case, okay, maybe in previously you booked the call with a human agent, and then maybe there was like one reminder text sent.
Right.
Okay, so now we have unlimited capacity with AI agents. The work involved in deploying it and improving it is automated. So even after the appointment, I can schedule a call where the AI asks the patient, how did it go? Like, how did you like the doctor? How did you like the office? And then based on the responses, we can offer other services to them and other touch points as well to give them that sort of like concierge style experience that maybe you never had the capacity to handle before. So you walked through in your demo building an agent and making improvements. And
Right.
I'm curious, in the day-to-day, where do you think Copilot is going to save teams sort of the most time and unlock the most benefit and improvement?
Yeah, I think one of Copilot's most powerful capabilities is being a proactive tool and teammate on your contact center. So you mentioned a lot of data that Regal has. Because Copilot lives in-app, it has access to all of that same data. So it can see maybe things like hallucinations, repetition in your agent, even things
Yeah.
like contact sentiment, resolution rate, all of those things that you're monitoring to check and keep track of. Your Copilot is already looking at all of those things proactively, so it can make these changes and improvements almost instantaneously, so you don't have to have a call go off track for you to notice it. Copilot
Yeah.
can track that for you. I want to say, like, for an example, you mentioned like appointment scheduling. I think
Yeah, sure.
a task step that would exist in that is like verifying the caller's identity. Something you can ask Copilot to do is like look through this call transcript from the last 10 days and see, any improvements that need to be made. It might see that specific step of like verifying identity and track that there's a lot of repetition in your agent's speech, and be able to suggest changes that are really measurable, like making verification 1 or 2 steps, or even adjusting the amount of like follow-up questions. So things like that you can measure, like, is this actually improving my containment rate? Is contact sentiment going up? So all of these changes aren't just good in theory, they're proven by our experience with hundreds and millions of calls, based in best practices and work, and can be measured for success.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cool. So we talked about this benefit of expanding use cases because it's so much sort of easier now with AI to deploy an agent and make changes.
Right.
And by the way, when you talk about these recommended changes, you do still have full control to reject or accept them, and that's a really important piece to keep in mind here. Is AI is sort of guiding you throughout the way, but it is ultimately your agent, your customers that we're working with. So it is really like a collaborative effort. So I'm curious, if I thought about a new use case for this appointment scheduling agent, how could I ensure with Copilot that it is production ready from day one?
Yeah, I think the reason why a lot of teams might hesitate to deploy a new use case now is that every use case can be complex, and it requires a lot of testing. So, for example, let's say I want to expand that appointment scheduling agent to handle patient intake. We know from working with like highly regulated industries that this is something that has a lot of nuance in the conversation, and we've actually had like AI agents handle patient intake before, and we find that they go into things like the type of doctor they want to see, specialists, any previous symptoms, family history, all of those things are pretty complex. What Copilot allows you to do is to test for all sorts of call scenarios so they can handle that nuance in the conversation itself. So you can ask it to generate a patient intake agent, and it'll also generate tests like edge cases, maybe if your caller is missing a certain like identification, like ID or like or doesn't know the name of their like insurance policy or something like that. Your agent is able to handle those things, so you're able to expand to those new use cases faster. Yeah. And so I've talked a lot about like what Copilot can do. I think a lot of our customers will be curious about what sorts of knowledge does Copilot have access to, and what kinds of data is it referencing as it's giving me answers?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can ingest any assets you give us around your existing business logic, branded identity, guardrails you already have documented, any sort of scripts or recordings or transcripts you have of calls where your human reps did a great job. Like, we can all feed that into that first agent that we build to make it as tailored as possible to the branded identity that you want to get across, and to your business logic and existing CX workflows. And then once that first agent is refined and like operating at its best, we also have access to that information. So the goal is, okay, yeah, the first use case is going to require like some working together on, okay, what exact messaging do you want the AI agent to get across?
Right.
But then once that's live, you know, the second use case and the second prompt that we automatically generate for you with AI is automatically going to take, you know, all of those changes into account, so that you can sort of speed up every new use case. We also have access to your entire orchestration framework. So that could include routing rules, outbound journeys, inbound, you know, IVR flows. With Regal, we operate the entire agentic lifecycle. It's not just about the AI agents. So what that gives our Copilot and AI capability to do is make recommendations and troubleshoot within the actual workflow of the AI agent, right? Maybe we have a suggestion to reach out at a different time or in a different method or over a different channel, or, you know, route certain segments to, you know, a different agent. Those are all things we have access to, and so can leverage. And then I would say the last bucket is really performance data for the AI agent. And you can think of these as data points as falling under sort of like three pillars. So the first is the AI agent actually driving business results?
Right.
So for this appointment scheduling agent, it might be like, is it driving appointments? Is it driving customer satisfaction? Then there's the operational metrics that sit underneath. So it's like, you know, how many leads is it reaching out to? How quickly is it reaching out to those leads? Maybe there's like, you know, sub-operational points within the conversation that are like, is it authenticating the contact, you know, properly, like you mentioned? And then there's a bucket of data around the quality of the AI agent itself. Like, how human does it feel, right? How does it sound? Is it, you know, operating with optimal latency, low error rate on those action invocations to schedule the meeting in a calendaring system or update the CRM with information about new patients? You know, you also brought up like hallucinations, or is it actually respecting the guardrails?
Right.
So the beauty of having access to all that data is Copilot can actually review all of that data and let you know what is going wrong and the impact of those things, so that you can prioritize reviewing the right changes and making the right changes. So for example, it could say, you know, oh, a customer, you know, or 100 customers ask questions about the like cost of scheduling an appointment with a specific doctor.
Right.
And the AI agent didn't have a, you know, a good answer to that. And so we recommend updating the prompt with either an escalation path to a human agent or a little bit more context so that the agent can handle those flows. And we expect that to, you know, improve your appointment booking rate at a certain point, basically.
Cool. Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that Copilot can help not only generate a new agent, but also like create all the orchestration flows for it.
Yeah.
Something I'm curious about is Copilot allows you to make your agent better over time, allowing for that like continuous improvement to happen. How do like our customers validate that those suggested improvements are actually working?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, again, we look at the data that already sort of exists. So in that case, it's, I mean, part of it is like qualitatively like reviewing certain transcripts to see, okay, are customers like reacting properly to this stuff, right? Like you don't only want to look at the numbers, but the numbers speak to the impact at scale. So in that example, it would be, okay, are more appointments booked now, or is latency lower than before? And is that leading to higher contact sentiment, or like a lower drop-off rate is usually like, you know, the metric that's affected by latency, or, you know, is our CRM hygiene better because we were actually able to make the updates and the like CRM action is like invoking more reliably. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at.
Cool, nice.
Yeah, and you know, we also talked about you know, the ability to sort of like improve with every interaction. And when I think about what continuous improvement really looks like, it's that cycle of looking at the data, suggesting a change, and then making the update, and then going back to looking at the data again, like, did it work? No, it didn't. Okay, we're going to suggest a change and then do that again. And usually it'll work, but maybe, you know, there's still room for improvement. And so that's sort of like operating under the hood 24/7. You leave, you come back, like, we already have more insights for you on, you know, learnings about your customers and what could be going better and what you could do about it. And, you know, we talked a little bit about, like, what it looks like to continuously improve and what kind of suggestions come up.
Right.
Can you talk a bit more about why that continuous loop is so important?
Yeah, for sure. I think anyone who's run a contact center before knows that customer needs are evolving really fast. And we've designed Copilot to keep up with that. So it's not like you're getting the same customer calling with the same issue every day. For example, with your appointment scheduling agent, maybe there's a change in coverage. Suddenly you're getting like more calls about, what is this going to mean for like how much I have to pay? Am I still covered by this specific doctor? Can I reschedule my appointment? And there's different types of questions that are coming in. And every customer is like this. They're going to have different needs come up depending on the time, depending on changes in your pricing, in your insurance coverage. Everything like that isn't stagnant, and Copilot accounts for that. So I think we've talked a lot about how Copilot can help you understand your agent better, but it can also help you get a pulse on what your customers are asking and the sorts of objections they're coming to your agent with. And this kind of shows how AI isn't just transforming the contact center, it's transforming your understanding of the customer market. It can even affect your finance team, and you can get a pulse on all of these things a lot more quickly than before.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like becomes like a member of your team.
Exactly, yeah.
In terms of like, you know, suggesting insights and like prioritizing your next steps to like maximize the customer experience and maximize sales and support and all of that. Fantastic. So next, I think we're going to take a few questions from the audience.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So let me take a look. Okay, we have a few good ones in the chat. Let's start with this one. So I'm interested in AI agents, but I haven't made one before. How would Regal help me? Yeah, this is a good one. It's one of the most common questions we get, and it's the right one to ask before you commit. I would say the first thing is really, we would help you make sure that we're the right vendor for you. And we'll be the first to tell you, like, to shop around really, because everyone has their own expertise. So our expertise is in developing voice AI and agentic workflows for highly complex systems for B2C enterprises, which tend to have really complex tech stacks and business logic and workflows. So any sort of like high stakes interaction or conversations that are going to touch a lot of different systems, your CRM, any sort of like data pipelines, that is where we thrive. We would pair you with a forward deployed engineer. This is your guide throughout the journey. So this guide works alongside Copilot. And mind you, like, the platform is fully self-serve, so you can make whatever, changes you desire, but ultimately, like, they're going to be the ones with the expertise to walk you through every part of the flow, figuring out which use cases should I start with, like, what is going to drive the biggest impact, how do I de-risk those use cases, especially if there's going to be some sort of collaboration between the AI agent and human reps, and this comes up often in, like, insurance and healthcare, where you need like a human with a license to actually like handle the conversion. They will work with you once you've identified a use case to build the prompt with Copilot, get it tested so that you feel confident before it launches, get it deployed across your systems, and then review with you the recommendations that Copilot is making so that you can improve the agent over time, and then brainstorm the next set of use cases, whether that be containing more of the conversation that you started out with, or thinking of completely new touch points or completely new channels that you haven't tapped into yet.
Great.
All right, let's do one more. 2 more? Okay, I think we have time for one more. I work at a university and want to deploy AI agents to address student calls. Cool use case. Okay, we use AI agents from a different vendor and they sometimes go off track. Does Copilot consider these situations?
Yeah, this is a good question. And we've worked with a lot of education companies before. As we mentioned, we work with a lot of highly regulated industries. It seems like in this case, like, as you said before, no one needs to be an AI expert to build an effective AI agent. So it seems like in this case, there is like there might be students going on tangents, so it's hard to keep the calls on track. So this is exactly what Copilot is built for. We have guardrails built into every AI agent before it's even deployed. So for something like this, there can be guardrails on mentions of like things that are outside the agent's task steps. They can reframe that to keep the conversation on track. And also with a university, maybe you want all of your agents across use cases to identify or brand themselves in a certain way, and you can do that easily by not only customizing the text-based prompt, but you can also customize the voice, maybe to sound younger, to be more relatable to students who are calling in, and you can do that across every use case. With Copilot, it's more powerful than ever now because you can actually ask Copilot to reference a previous agent that you've built that has stayed on track, has maintained compliances, has strong guardrails, and you can use it to build for a new use case. So I think that shows like how powerful it is for Copilot to be not only a flexible tool, but one that can repeat itself over and over again.
Totally. Well, and it has access to best practices that we've learned from every previous education use case, right? So we can sort of recommend to you like very industry-specific guardrails. Yeah. I also want to call out like our agents very rarely, almost never hallucinate. We do track that data because it's important, but we don't train our LLMs. We don't allow the LLM providers that we work with to train on your data. And in the sort of parameter set you can give the LLM, like we don't allow for a lot of variance. So it's not very common, but sometimes when the AI goes off track, it's also because the student in this case goes off track.
Right, yeah.
And so again, you can add in prompting or guardrails to bring them back to the conversation at hand and what the agent has the most context around, which is getting you to enroll or find out more information about a course or whatever it is. So thank you so much for those questions. I don't think we got to everything, so...
time for one more.
Okay, amazing. We have time for one more. Let's do this one. After my agent goes live, how does Copilot reference real calls? Can I see the transcripts it's basing its suggestions on?
Yeah, visibility is very central to Copilot. So every time it is making a suggested improvement, it will show you the exact transcript and conversation where it's finding a pattern. Maybe this is across like 10 different transcripts actually. So you know that the improvement isn't just something that sounds good. It's something that is based on your real call transcripts. I think another thing about Copilot was when I was playing around with the platform, I loved that it was talking me through its reasoning for everything beyond like call transcripts. Even when it's building an agent, it's showing me what sorts of information it's referencing, where it's pulling this data from, what sorts of patterns it's pulling out, and like specific data points where we can track the changes and see if they're actually creating measurable improvements in my agent performance after I've made those changes. So visibility is central. None of these suggestions are happening in a black box. You know exactly where Copilot is getting its answers from.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I appreciate the reasoning as well.
Yeah.
I find it to be like very educational too.
Yeah.
Because it helps you like sort of inform like how you prompt the next time.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool. So if we didn't get to your question, don't worry. We will do our best to follow up async. And thank you so much for coming and listening to us chat about Copilot and the agentic lifecycle and the complexities involved in how we're addressing those as a company for the businesses that we work with. We've worked with over 200 enterprises, driving over 400 million voice AI calls. So if that is interesting to you, if you'd like to play around with Copilot, if you'd like to work with us, we would love to work with you. So we'll make sure to put a link in the chat so that you can sign up for a demo. And we'll, of course, follow up with resources after the session as well.
Great.
So thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.